Welcome to another episode of. We're gonna keep calling it. We need to talk live until James and I figure out a proper name for this. Uh, sensei and student. I don't know. We're gonna figure it out. But again, we are joined by the incomparable Mr. James Penn Jr. Um,
You would be the sensei if we go with that name, right?
nah, man. Nah, man. I just sit at the feet and soak up wisdom, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like to do, and you're one of the brothers I get a lot of wisdom from. Hold on, let me adjust this real quick. But how's your week been, brother?
Man, it's been a week of weeks. It feels
Yeah,
like we just on Wednesday, but Monday, Tuesday, and every day of this week has felt like a different week. All of it in itself. So, man,
yeah.
quite the journey in this week, and I hope we can maybe have a little bit of that inside of the show, man. A show within a show. I know we're gonna kind of several different topics, so we'll have
Yeah,
multiple things. How about you?
absolutely, man. Nah, my week's been good, man. My foot is swelling up again for whatever reason. So I'm on my third week of physical therapy.
Okay.
So just
Out here kicking tails and taking
slowly getting back to normal. Say what?
kicking tails and taking names, man. You gotta stop kicking people so hard. So
Man, listen, man. I regret anybody I've ever kicked in my life. I apologize. This is not. This is not it, man. I was reading that apparently it's better to like break a bone than to rupture a tendon, just because of how you know what I'm saying. So
yeah,
yeah, man. But I'm thankful though. I'm thankful I can walk now, so we
okay.
all good. But for everybody watching, welcome. We thank you guys for joining us. Let me add Instagram so we can get some of that audience. Yeah, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, we're joined by Mr. James Penn Jr. I'm seeing thumbs ups in the chat, so that means you guys can hear me. If you're joining from Instagram, welcome. Consider going to YouTube and supporting us there. Most of our content is on YouTube. Today, like the past 2 weeks, we will continue our conversation around marriage, the efficacy of marriage, how marriage looks going into the 22nd century. What aspects of traditional marriage should we maintain? What aspects should we get rid of? What basically, how do we renegotiate the institution in a way that is not just productive but also timely, right? And I think James and I, in private and now in public, we've kind of been having that tug of war conversation of flame and frame. What is the purpose of two people joining in union, and we're just continuing that conversation. So before we get started, we just want to kind of touch on a few current events to kind of get the juices flowing, if you will, and then we'll dive right back into the conversation with a few examples. So, Mr. James, if you're ready, man, I'll go ahead and pull up the first video.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. So I got to change that out. Let me do this. I got them in order this time. So
Okay.
She have like things that she need to work on. Like I don't feel as if like she should have been arrested. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, people have discussions and emotions and stuff like that. And she have like things that she need to work on for herself, of course. So do I, so do you, like everybody. And I'm the type of guy like I'm in the business of just like extending grace and mercy and love. And I feel as if like I don't try to look at obstacles either. Like I just look at like situations like this to just like take a step back, analyze yourself mentally, and then just try to see what you could do to be your best self so that you can move forward, so you can just be the type of person and a human that God needs you to be for his kingdom and for his glory. And so that's kind of how I look at the situation. And I hate the narrative too of just like, what I'm saying, it's so negative. But like I said, it's just like in the state of Seattle, even talking to the cop or whatever, he was just like, it really was nothing I could do. And just like, I understood. But I mean, like I said, it was just a sucky situation. But personally, what I'm saying? I feel like it was just a sucky situation. It was just a sucky situation, but she's a human being and a great person. And I feel like, you know what I'm saying, like we've been able to be like really good teammates like all year. And I hate that narrative too because you know, us coming together like we're just two like real dominant personalities. And she's to me the best female athlete in the world. Like I see it every day. And like, you know, for me in my process, like I just said, like moving training groups, a whole new environment, a whole new, you know what I'm saying, training setup, different than what I've been in the past, like, you know, 10 years of my, you know, track and field career. And transitioning and then still coming back running 9.8 and feeling like I got so much more to give. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my path, that's my journey, and like being so up close and personal with her every day. And like I watched this girl like fall on the track like in February and walk it off like it was, you know what I'm saying, like a cramp, but get back up and have to take like a month and a half of just like rehab and trying to come back. And then 3 weeks later, like it was just a sucker to like have a competition and like, you know what I'm saying, like she just has a lot of things going on and like a lot of emotions and forces going on inside of her that like not only I can understand, but you know nobody can, because she 1-on-1 and I'm 1-on-1 too. And so I know everything that's happening in God's plan because obviously He's 1-on-1. And so that's really the main focus and the thing that I just wanted to say. And I know that like it's been a tough journey for her this year, but she's gonna bounce back. And like I said, I see it every day. She's the best female athlete in the world, and she's gonna be just fine. She's gonna be good, and I'm gonna be good too. So it is what it is. Like have a competition and like.
All right, brother. So, you know, as our resident track and field expert, I'm gonna let you kind of paint the picture, man. Like, what were we looking at, basically?
Yeah. So, for those who for me, I think Sha'Carri has probably more of the star power amongst the general population, but Christian Coleman, that dude on the track, I mean, he is one of he's arguably the best starter in the history of track and field. You know, in the first 30 to 60 meter, he has a 60-meter world record. So I mean, he's a beast. You know, people who are track fans know who he is. You know, not so much. You probably know Sha'Carri more, but it's interesting because as a track enthusiast, a track fan, before it was even kind of like public that they were out, I ran into him in Atlanta, and I kind of sniffed. You know, it was like 2 years ago, like into 2023. I was at a restaurant in Atlanta, and I was looking, and the waitress thought I was like looking for help or something. She was like, you need someone? I was like, nah, that guy looks familiar. She's like, oh, the track guy? I was like, yeah, it's that. She's like, yeah, that's him. So I'm like, yo, that's crazy. And when I walked past, I saw somebody that looked like Sha'Carri. I'm like, well, it's got to be her, right? So I saw them together, kind of look more than just, peers in the same space. I kind of peeped that before it was coming. But let me start with the obvious, right? Nobody should be putting their hands on each other. Certainly, cause a scene in public and all those type of things. And the most important part is like keep your hands to yourself. Simultaneously, man, this might be unpopular, but I like the grace that he's given. For his woman. We're going to talk some about double standards tonight, and I think all double standards are built the same. We can have double standards on double standards, if that makes sense. Right? Some double standards, rightfully so, and some double standards not. And so when it comes to like physical accosting, right? Like there's a difference in actually being under physical threat and something that is kind of an annoyance, right? Like there's this concept of, hey, you get slapped on one cheek, like turn the other cheek. And we think of a slap, that's like more of an insult. Like I'm not actually, I mean, it can hurt. It's not, I'm not saying that she slapped him. I'm talking about the concept of turn the other cheek. That doesn't mean that somebody's actually attacking you with full-on violence that you should ignore this. That is saying bigger person when someone's really doing something to insult you. And when we have a situation where there is domestic attack, right? We're not built the same. Like if we understand and recognize that men and women are different, right? Him been willing to extend the grace, coupled with having actually observed her journey before she was like globally known, watching her at LSU and being somebody who was probably more critical of her when everybody was, she had her first kind of public uh, scandal, if you will, and everybody was like, "Oh, she, they should let her run. This is a travesty. This is racism." I was like, "No, you need to sit down." I was like really critical of her in a time when a lot of people were trying to defend her, and after she came back, I remained critical of her. She was having some post-race interviews that weren't, becoming of the type of person that you want to be and want to represent. Certainly doesn't embody what I want for a role model for my daughters who also run track. And I was very critical and caught a lot of flack, amongst people in conversations, behind that. But since then, I've seen a lot of data points of her growth, and so all of this to say, my read on it, having more data points of seeing her growth in other areas, is as somebody is trying to evolve from a person who's not healthy, nothing's linear and there's up and downs. And my prayer, my hope is that this was a unfortunate step back experience in what has otherwise been a trajectory over the last year or two of her really showing signs of improving as a person. And if the man that's closest to her is okay with giving her grace and covering, then I don't have a problem with it. And so, I feel very if a man that has otherwise shown himself to be respectable, how he chooses to deal with his woman, I kind of defer to him on that. And he seems to be by all standards, what I can tell from the outside looking in, a man that is respectable in the way he carries himself and things of that nature. And so, men and women aren't the same. And so even in domestic altercations, I don't think it should be, this is an area where it should not be, received the same. That's not to say that women shouldn't keep their hands on themselves. Let me be very clear. I started with that. I got to end with that because I don't need no miscommunication or confusion on that. Like, it's absolutely, was wrong. But, for us to not understand that all double standards aren't the same, then we're acting and pretending as if men and women are the same, which is one of the things that we as men rail against. We ain't the same. Come on.
Yeah. I'll try to figure out where to start because a lot of thoughts were in my head. I agree with you. I don't think anybody should put their hands on anybody. I think that the reality of like domestic violence that a lot of people miss is are the stages of escalation, right? Like stage one is not the hands being put, right? It usually starts, I think, verbal and then financial and then physical, and then it escalates from there to people potentially losing their life. So for me, I understand emotions. I understand, things can get chaotic and you kind of see red or blackout, whatever the case may be. But if your reflex is to immediately be physical, whether with men or women, a man with men or women with women, if that's your reflex, that is a very unsustainable way of approaching the world, right? Like my mom used to say, no matter how big and bad you are, you're gonna meet somebody who's bigger and badder than you at some point in your life, right? So that's number one. Number two, I think that the thing that's missed often in this conversation, and I think it also branches out into conversations about relationships and the mating crisis, etc., is women are incapable at large. Women are incapable of seeing themselves as perpetrators, and men are incapable of seeing ourselves as victims. And when we talk about like the different ways that men and women are tried in the court of public opinion and in the literal court, I think it really boils down to that. And we talk about like how women are infantilized, relative to men. She's just being a woman, as opposed to she's being dangerous, she's being immature, she's being unreasonable, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that this is a double standard that cannot persist, because the consequences outside of us trying to make everybody and everything equal, but the consequences, I think, are dire and dangerous, particularly for women, because when we continue to go in a direction that kind of like deifies and excuses a certain group of people, what tends to happen is there'll be a pendulum swing, and then we'll go back to the to the alternative, right? So in a lot of women's mind, that's like Handmaid's Tale, right? So if we continue to go full speed ahead in the direction of women can do no wrong, and even when they do wrong, we should be more accommodating than would be reasonably expected for society to be for a man in the same position or with the same crime or the same offense. I think we have to kind of nip that in the bud. So for me, I'm sure he's a great dude. I'm sure Sha'Carri is making changes and strides or whatever the case may be. But I think that for his own good, for her own good, for future boys and girls in society's own good, I think the best thing we can do is to consider it publicly and legally the same way it would be if the roles were reversed. And I think that whatever accommodations that we would give a man, or the lack of accommodations we would give a man who decided that physical violence against his significant other was the right path forward, or couldn't control himself to stop that from happening, I think we should give it to her as well, because I think the future of that type of equity is better than this current present time of like, she's just a woman, she can't do that much damage or whatever the case may be. So I don't think that I don't think it's right that we are not being as harsh as we would be if the headline was that he was the one abusing her.
So I don't have any real pushback on principles of what you're saying here. It is absolutely dangerous to excuse the behavior or to pretend as if it's okay. I think where I start to parse and try to and kind of see some gray area is the response being identical. Now, if it were a dichotomy and we had to pick either or, then I would agree with you that is going to yield better outcomes. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to, have to be that way. And because if I'm looking at this, well, how would this be if it was a man? Well, let's say it was man to man, right? If Christian Coleman was being pushed by another man and he's trying to get away and he's pushed, and then a man throws some headphones at him and he turns around and lays him out cold, I have no problem with that. I don't think that would be an appropriate response, for it to be a woman. So if we're getting very strict now, if we're talking about like levels of this, like, okay, societally from a legal perspective, then we have to handle it the same, right? That's one conversation. The court of public opinion, where we castigate one and we turn a blind eye to the other. Okay, that's not right, but do we necessarily castigate it the exact same? It should be some criticism, for her. I am okay if there's more criticism if it was reversed. Criticism for both, but they don't have to look identical. I'm okay with that, right? And so these are the gray areas that I'm talking about. So to your point, if the dangers, because I think it's a very, very poignant point that you illuminate that the levels of this, the fact that this was done publicly, indicates like, is this really probably the first time, right? If something publicly like this happens, is that really the first time, right? Number two, not just public, TSA.
That's government. That's not even public. That's government. If they arrest you, you're going to the feds. Yes.
The feds. You know what I'm saying? And you can't control yourself.
Yep.
in that environment. I think the bigger affront here is that gross of a lack of self control is something that is very, very problematic and cannot, can't happen. It can't be excused. Simultaneously, all of this doesn't contradict in what I'm saying. That like I don't expect it to be an an equal response because if he was being pushed by another man, and he retaliates in a certain way, I don't think that's appropriate. I'm still teaching, some of the traditional chivalrous things, to my son, like to not hit. He has sisters, you don't hit them. If he had brothers, he doesn't. But y'all hit, hey, he hit you. Y'all want to go in the backyard and figure it out? He can't do that with his sisters.
Right.
I discipline my daughters differently. As he's becoming and my son, he's so mild mannered. Love his heart. Never have had to physically restrain him or do anything. He's 12, about to turn 12 years old this month. But the threats have been there. Of hey, listen, if you start getting to a certain age, I'm gonna cave your chest in. You can get out of line. I've never told my daughter I'm gonna cave your chest in. Right. So I think it's appropriate to have some level of distinction in terms of the degree and gravity. The things that are unexcusable for my daughters are also unexcusable for my sons, for my son. But how I respond and the severity and the level to which I respond is going to be different, right? If one of my daughters were to act out of line and do something, get in my wife's face, or raise their voice or put their hands on my wife, like it's going to be a problem. And my son doesn't. It's a different scenario. It's a problem either way, but it's going to be different, based off of gender because we are different. So,
yeah, I mean, for me, I guess what I'm getting at more specifically is in the context of a domestic relationship, intergendered relationship, a man and a woman, let's consider the idea that a man hit a woman. I think her decision to not retaliate is governed by her acknowledgement of his physical superiority. Let's say a woman hits a man. His decision to retaliate is not an acknowledgement of her physical superiority, but it's an acknowledgement of the law and the ramifications of his retaliation. Right. So the problem is one side is checked. There are like some checks and balances to keep you honest in your ability to, or your reflex to retaliate, whereas the other side is unchecked. Because to your point, she did this in front of TSA, which tells me and everybody else that she's done it before, and she's definitely done worse in situations where there weren't as many eyes or as many authoritative eyes around. And which brings me back to the question of, is it productive for us to maintain the idea that boys should give a certain level of grace to girls and women that they should not expect in return in this context? Is it productive? Because I don't think, like, if my brother was like, a girl hit me, I would say, get as far away as you can. It's happened to me. I did not retaliate because I'm not even from this country, so I'd be deported if I did some dumb shit like that, right? So my reflex is run. Like, you got it. You can tell everybody you whooped my ass. You got it.
Get on your Jonathan Majors.
With that being said, I don't think. I think we have to decide one of two things, right? I think we either have to decide that we're going to make the public shame, the punishment, etc., equitable, right? So, to your point about like if he did it versus her, like either we decide to make the punishment equitable or we decide to make the grace equitable. But currently, neither the punishment or the grace is equitable, right? Because you could make an argument for the male Shikaris out there that they were getting their life together. They are on a good path. It was the first time. You can make arguments for them, but we typically do not, right? Because we are more comfortable assuming the worst of men than we are from women. We're more comfortable assuming that men are irredeemable and assuming that women are only, they're only one decision a couple months away from being every woman, according to Aretha Franklin. And I think that for me is what's unsustainable, because there will come a tipping point. And honestly, I think it's happening. There will come a tipping point where, like, I remember when Trump first got elected, and Van Jones or Van Lathan, I always get them mixed up. He was on CNN crying, as he always is. But he was talking about how he was talking about how this felt like a white lash, right? Of 8 years of Obama, the election of Trump felt like a white lash. So if we do not want a misogynistic backlash, if we do not want the underbelly of patriarchy to backlash against this continuous sustained inequity, I think we're going to have to, like I said, either decide to make the punishment equitable or make the grace equitable.
And I'm okay with making them both equitable. And I so a couple of things. One, I was a little intrigued by your response as to why the man holds restraint, because I had a totally different initial thought on why a man holds restraint, and it wasn't because of the consequences. Mm-hmm. It was the inverse of a woman's holding restraint because she knows that she's the inferior physical vessel. And I was thinking the inverse, and a man holds restraint because he knows that he's the superior physical vessel, because that, you see the world the way you are. That's why I'm holding restraint. Mm-hmm. If I, in a type of situation, is because I know what happens if I do this to you as a weaker vessel, right? So I'm going to have restraint, amongst myself. Likewise, if it was a kid, right? Like a 10-year-old boy, he's a male. If he was, I'm going to have restraint. Not because, well, you're going to go to jail for beating up a kid. No, it's because it's a kid. Mm-hmm. And so there's a part of the idea of like not viewing women as children that I agree with, and there's a part that I don't agree with. I agree with it from an accountability standpoint, that they're not children. They are to have accountability. And this is where equitable, you chose the word equitable. Equitable isn't always equal. And so I do agree that there should be equitable accountability and equitable grace. Okay. But I don't think that necessarily has to look equal. And that was kind of the broadest point that I was making there. But women are children to me, in the sense of it's going to be very unpopular. I'm trying to be careful not to get clipped up and go get canceled here. But I'll say it this way. Some people have this pushback on a concept of men feeling like they, women are possessions of them. I'm going to say it this way. When I say it's my wife, I mean that's my wife.
Yeah.
Right. And so in a power dynamic where I'm saying this is my wife, how I choose to account for the power dynamic between me and my wife, I'm going to give some leeway to men in with their woman and how they're okay with extending, grace on some of these type of things, right? So, and then, to the equitable part on how we view it, on the macro from a grace standpoint, I was one who had more grace for like a Chris Brown, and particularly when more details came out about what exactly was happening. Again, yes, consequences. Yes, it was not right. But when more details comes out, some people that still won't forgive Chris Brown. He was young. It's not an excuse, right? She was, allegedly getting physical with him, to a high degree, not acceptable for somebody in a bigger power situation to do that, for that to be the outcome. But there's grace of understanding on my part, whereas maybe not for some. So I think that's, when we talk about like equitable, I guess for me, the bigger thing is I would like to see more grace on a macro in our society, period. And so if there's some redeemable, if there's signs of redeemability, I like grace. I like grace because I want grace.
This is the part, and I know we're going to get to the other things. And if you're just joining us, the title of this stream is "Get You a White Man." So we'll get to that, brother. The brother in the last comment, the resident airsofter, he brought up the thumbnail. If we're going to talk about the lady on that podcast who said there's a weakness in him when she sees a black man with a white woman, we will definitely get to that. That's why I put Candace Owens on the thumbnail. But I think where we are here is really, really interesting, and it's really important. I really want to get back to the inability that's been socialized in men to see themselves as victims and the potential consequences of that. Like last week, we talked about the loneliness epidemic. People have been having conversations about the mental health crisis. Men are more likely to delete themselves and things of that nature. I believe these things are linked. I believe these things are intrinsically tied. And I'll give you this example. I remember when I was 16 and I went to visit Nigeria. We took a trip to the neighborhood where I grew up, like where I was born. For anybody watching who's from Nigeria, I was born in Ojo Elegba. So like it's the hood, if you will. And while we were driving, I saw a dead body on the road. I saw a burnt dead body on the road. And I remember thinking two things. I remember number one thinking, I don't feel anything. And then I immediately remember thinking, but I should. And I was like, okay, so why don't you feel anything? Well, because you've seen this before. You've actually seen this happen when you were a kid, a baby. You've seen people like mob justice happen in real time, where people put a tire around somebody, set them on fire. In the worst fuel crisis, somebody will come out with some fuel to set somebody on fire for stealing some nonsense, a peanut, right? So it's normal for you, but you spent the majority of your life in an American context. Well, at that point I hadn't, but now you spent the majority of your life in an American context where, people would lose their shit if they see a puppy get kicked, right? But so you're trying to reconcile, okay, I know what's right and I know what I'm supposed to feel, but I'm incapable of feeling that. And I think that analogy applies to men's ability to see ourselves as victims. And I think that plays into, or I think that reinforces women's inability to take accountability, women's inability to be corrected, women's inability, like I said initially, to see themselves as perpetrators, right? Because we're taught what to be for women, but not what to expect for women, right? We're taught that every woman is simply a reflection of you and how you treat her and how you show up for her. Later in life, we realize that it's not true, and she's the consequence of her experiences, her childhood, etc., just like any other human being. And we are engaged in an exercise of futility, trying to quote unquote bring out the best of her that may or may not even exist, right? So with situations like this, I think it's a really good opportunity for men understanding that we're physically superior on average, but also understanding that with that physical superiority, with our the ways that we've been calloused by nature and also by society. We should have more love and regard for ourselves, and not overemphasize our ability to endure, or our ability to take things, right? And also have some foresight, because some dudes get killed. Like we look at women like the the weaker vessel, but then we hear stories about a lady who's putting bleach in her man's coffee for years until he dies. We hear
Dante
stories
Culpepper.
about how women set men up, women hire assassins, women crush glass and put it in. Like we, so I don't think that the continued approach of further infantilizing women, further, in my opinion, perpetuating this like ultimately it's insulting, right? I think the way that we trivialize how dangerous women are is insulting, and it's dangerously insulting, because some of the most dangerous people in the world are women, particularly because they are not thought of as dangerous, right? So for my future sons, if I show them this video, I'm like, the first time she even raises her voice in a way that's violent, get up out of there. Get up out of there, because it will not be good for you. Even now, you hear stories about the woman will. I saw a video. I hope it's not true, but there's a girl, she called into a show, and it was a show about, like, tell your deepest darkest secret, or whatever the case may be. And she had to be like 14, 15. She was giggling, and she told a story about how her ex-boyfriend broke her heart. So she lied to her brothers that him and his brothers beat her up. So her brothers went over there, and one thing led to another. One of the brothers killed the boy. That brother is in prison. The boy is dead. She's laughing on the stream talking about it.
Or even the Travis Rudolph case, right? The Travis Rudolph case, the Florida State, football player dealing with the wrong type of woman, and she makes up some story or something that happens. Some dudes roll up. Travis ain't about that life. One of those guys got killed behind her. So weaponized, like, definitely women, using some of this shield, what do they call it? Plot armor, right? Some of this narrative armor.
Yeah.
That women, aren't dangerous or can't be dangerous, can't be perpetuators, using some of this narrative armor to weaponize even other men, right? Jason Wilson was, just recently talking about how, in the streets, right? You try to set a guy up. Oftentimes, it's not uncommon to send a woman, right? In the game, like, send a woman to get close to her, right? Because you'll never see that coming, never suspect it. So yeah, I take account, for all of that. When we talk about men not being able to see themselves as victims, I make a distinction between being victimized and being a victim, and this idea of men thinking, placing a idea of the type of woman that's around them is a reflection of them. I'm okay with that. It's not a reflection of who you are, how a woman acts, but it is a reflection of you, of how the women that you allow to be in your space, how they act. That is a reflection of you, right? Like, how I allow other people to treat me and remain in my space is a reflection of who I am. And so, when it comes to that, I absolutely would give, my son the same advice. Women can start talking a certain, her decibel level.
Get up out of there.
Her decibel's the wrong way. Yeah, for her to not recognize the distinction between our physical capability and superiority, the distinction in who's a leader and who's a not, the distinction in like, why are you over talking, a man? If she doesn't recognize that, why is she even around you? And if you continue to persist to allow her around you and you get victimized, a lot of people talk about as victim blaming. That's a reflection of how you allow your space to operate. So
I mean, I'll say this in our defense, right? Because I've been a victim in this sense as well, and when I think back to those situations, and thank God I didn't retaliate, right? Number one, it was the arrogance of believing that she's just a woman, like it was but also it was the I think a part of me believed that I deserved it. A part of me believe, and when you see female discourse around certain situations, um, like a situation where the man did something to a woman, it's an open and shut case. He's a monster. Period. But when you see discourse around situations like this or other situations, and I think it's also a consequence of shows like Snapped and things like that, because women are familiar with the pathology of the Snapped and all that good stuff. Is like, what did he do? Is the first thought. What did he do for this woman to slash his throat while he was sleeping? He must have done something, right? And I think it speaks to two things. It speaks to women's overindulgence in female pathology. So like I'm over familiar with how women think. So it's easier for me to empathize and walk a mile in her shoes proverbially. But also I think it's also drinking the Kool-Aid of believing women are inherently good people relative to men. So when women do things out of care, even now you see the hashtag women in men's spaces. When a woman is talking about cheating on her husband of 15 years, or a woman talking about abandoning her kids, as if women have never been doing that and they're just now acting like men, because women can only conceptualize things like power or things like evil through thinking of men, right? So it's doubly insidious, because whereas we have been socialized to start with the benefit of the doubt. She's innocent until proven guilty. Women have been socialized in the reverse. And in some ways it's to keep them safe, but in other ways it it makes it impossible for them to think of men as humans. A lot of women do not think of men as humans. At best, we are walking dildos with money, and at worst, we are monsters in waiting. And it's just a matter of time. Like you see some of these pictures on social media. A woman posting a guy that took her to vacation, and she edits him where his head is decapitated because she doesn't want some tea to come out, or she doesn't want to be embarrassed, whatever the case may be. But it's like, man, he exists in the capacity, or insofar as his capacity to serve you, and that's it. And I think that's the part of some of our maintenance of institutions like chivalry and traditional concepts of masculinity that have been self-destructive for men and potentially for women as well.
So how do you contend with the idea of a man not seeing a woman as incapable, but in particular regards inferior, and his response is because of that, not because I believe they're incapable of certain things, but I feel that I'm more capable and have more weight of responsibility to be able to account for that and contend for that. I'm a man. It's not that women are incapable of being perpetuators, but as a man, I should be not equally as capable of accounting for it. I should be more than capable than to account for it. And so, if you do get away from this rose-colored glasses, perspective, and you have, taken the red pill or whatever pill we're dealing with, in this day and age, and you have this sobering idea, like this higher level of accountability. And I do put it like a higher level of accountability and responsibility on men, because we're men. So we can be sobered to all the things that you're saying and say, yo, I should be a step ahead. So I'm not discounting that women are capable of being perpetuators. Okay, if I'm sober enough to realize that, as a man, I feel like I should be able to adjust and account for that and not fall victim to it.
But that's the thing. I think men believe they're a step ahead, but I think we believe wrongfully that the step ahead is in our ability to manage it, as opposed to our ability to discern it. Right? We believe women are children, women are Jezebels, Eve, whatever the case may be. And my ability to be a great Adam is indicative of my masculinity, as opposed to kind of like the example I gave, my ability to say, yeah, you're too much for me, or to flip it in woman speak, I'm not good enough for you. It's me, not you. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the shift that needs to happen, that I think a lot of us are struggling with.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. If she's dangerous, you got to get that. A way to account for that is not to manage it. It is to, some problems don't need to be delegated. They need to be deleted, right? They don't need to be, diminished. They need to be completely deleted and out of your environment. So yeah, good point. Great point.
Yeah. And I think it kind of goes back to what we brought up last week about, in my opinion, part of the arrogance of traditional paradigms of masculinity. Right? We talked about the coaching analogy. Like, most coaches aren't going to say, I'm not able to bring out the best in a player. Like, as a coach, part of being a coach, part of being a leader, part of being a manager, whatever the case may be, it is intrinsically tied to a certain degree of arrogance. It is intrinsically tied with a certain degree of like I was watching a video today, and somebody asked somebody, what's the worst piece of advice that you've ever gotten? And it's like, be realistic. And it is also something we touched on last week. To be a leader, to be a covering, to be everything that men are called to be, it's got a sexual relationship with arrogance. And part of how some of that arrogance goes unchecked is in your inability or unwillingness to acknowledge the lack of either the lack of your personal capacity to, or the lack of her willingness to be domesticated, if you will. And I think that's what gets tough, because if you believe traditional paradigms of being a man, it's going to be very hard simultaneously to also believe that I'm incapable of getting this woman in line.
Yeah, so I actually disagree with that, because I think it's a part of the greatest of coaches to be great talent scouts and be able to know the limitations of those that are on your team, because then otherwise you would be asking, people to do things that they're not capable of doing. Michael Jordan was a great player. He has not done a great job at running the Charlotte Hornets, and maybe in part because he's not a good evaluator of talent. Their drafting hasn't, been the greatest. That their ability to put teams together and recruiting and trading and free agency and acquisitions, all of it has not proven that they know how to do that. And so, interestingly enough, I was just watching a video on great coaching, and it was talking about Greg Popovich and him cutting, in one of the last preseason games, and cutting a particular player, and how he was able to communicate and sit down with the player and say, hey, and communicate with them the reason why he was being cut and what he lacked. And so a coach like a Greg Popovich, when we start to get to the great coaches, being able to evaluate your talent, it's not a hubris of I can bring the best out in players. Yeah, absolutely. You have that part. I can bring the best out in her, but also realizing that even though I bring your best out, I can recognize that your best isn't good enough for where we're going. So as a man, even in a traditional sense, because I think that I represent that traditional, archetype, if you will. I absolutely will very quickly. I say I'm always auditioning and interviewing people, right? So if I could leave like this point here on this topic, something tangible to take away is like for men, always be auditioning and interviewing everybody that's around you, man, woman, doesn't even matter, right? I'm auditioning and interviewing people all the time, even when they don't know they're auditioning and interviewing. It's always a networking thing. Is this somebody that fits inside a social circle of mine? Is this somebody that fits inside of a business circle of mine? Right? Like, where could this person, fit in my life? And there's always continual auditioning and interviewing of people that are in your circle and demoting them. Every team is always recruiting. Every team is always recruiting. No, even the defending champions don't run it back the exact same squad the next year. They're improving on the fringes. Even if there's core, they're starting five or their offensive 11, whatever it is the same. There's some backups, some in rotation guys. They're improving on the fringes at the trade deadline. You're always recruiting because you try to run it back with the same group all the time, and you're the same, but everybody else is improving. Then you're actually getting worse. And so we have to audition and interview constantly for the people around us, and we should be trading people, cutting people out of our circle, out of our personal lives, out of our business lives, and certainly, men who are, in the romantic recruiting state. You got to be quick to be able to make a cut to realize that, I could bring the best out of her, but her best ain't even. We trying to win chips, and even like recruit the best out of you, it ain't enough for where I'm going. And for this organization.
That's real. Let us pull up the next clip. It's kind of in line with what we're talking about, but it's a bit of a twist, I guess. So yeah, here's this.
What? Go over there. Yeah. I can't say that. Yes, you do. You know you do. Come on. Right. Can I give it to you? I'm the best. You give good head. I give great head. I give phenomenal head. I don't doubt that, but I can't say that. You can find out though. Huh? I say you can find out though. I can find out.
Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy. Houston, we got a problem. We've lost all contact with self-respect, decency, honor, self-preservation, decorum. Not to mention, we live in a world where things are super sensitive when it comes to things like sexual harassment. But if you look in this clip right here, if that were a guy and she was a female artist of some sort, this conversation would be very different. Shorty is flat out harassing Duke Dennis. This is insane. I'm sure none of y'all gonna get in the fucking comments and call her fucking weird, but I will. She's a fucking weirdo. That clip is going viral, and I can assure you she's going to be the same woman in a couple years talking about where the good men at. Ain't no good men around. Where the real men at that don't care about a woman's past? You think any man wants a woman that was on a fucking street begging to give Duke Dennis the guac 3000? Like, did it ever occur to her that she's someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's friend? Like, where's the level of discipline? Like, do people not give a fuck anymore about how they look? Because there's no way I could ever be in a public setting, see a celebrity of some sort, and just be like, hey, just so you know, I get a best head. I know you want some head. I give the best. Like, what are you getting from that? What self-satisfaction are you, like the level of desperation? And I understand that she's physically compromised, so she's on the latter end of affection and attention. But bro, at some point you got to say, okay, I'm not going to do that, bro. I'm just not going to put myself out there like that. Like, this nigga's streaming. Thousands of people, if not millions of people, are going to see this clip. And that's what you want to be known for? And here's the kicker. Now that she got rejected by Duke Dennis, she got to go back out into the real world and interact with regular people. And all the men that have saw that clip are going to have one idea of her. because of what she said on her own accord. And guess what she's gonna try to do? Blame the fucking men for being sexist, for being inappropriate. No, you said you give the best. Why can't we want to indulge as well? Hey, that offer that Duke Dennis turned down, we want it. Give it to that man that's gonna approach you. I promise you, this shit gonna be so left, and I can't wait for it. I get out here all the time talking about there's a male loneliness epidemic. Is there really? Because I can't tell. I don't see no niggas doing this. I can't tell. One thing's for sure, two things for certain. If she don't care, then neither should we. And secondly, no matter what they say on this here social media shit, they all going for the right nigga. It does not matter. I keep the change.
You want some head?
What?
You want some head? Go over head? Yeah. Ah, okay, baby.
I'm gonna give you the first word. What are your initial, immediate, most pressing thoughts?
So interestingly enough, right where we ended the last conversation, it kind of picks up. I know this is an extreme example, but
Sure.
sometimes the extremes, are good points to illuminate that if any man were to witness this and believe, well, I could bring out the best. If I couldn't bring out the best in her, that says something about, my male leadership. You're not a great coach. There's no level of best of that. The talent just ain't there to win that. The talent is just not there.
It's crazy.
You're deluded as you're recruiting and scouting for your team to want that on your team. You're not a great coach. I don't care how good you are at the X's and O's. I don't care how good you are in leadership, drawing up plays, influencing people, pulling out their best. If you recruited that, you picked that on your team, you're not a great coach. So that's kind of my initial thing. I'd be interested to know, what you see, because there's so many different angles, obviously.
Man.
To go ahead on this one.
For me, it goes back to what I was talking about, the audacity that we've made available to women because of our inability to conceptualize them as bad people. Right. So if men are unable to see women as bad people, and women as a consequence are unable to see themselves as bad people, there is no incentive to quote unquote behave. There is no incentive to have decorum, self-respect, to have manners even. And I think that's how you get things like this, right? There's no planet where a man can move like this publicly and it be remotely tolerated. But because women see themselves, and I think it's our fault, women see themselves as incapable of doing wrong. And part of that is also seeing men as incapable of being done wrong, which means you don't see men as people, which means that now you have to create an idea of men that is comfortable for you and an idea that helps you maintain your cognitive dissonance. The best idea a lot of women can come up with is that men are sexual creatures. Men are sexually driven. Men are led by their genitals. So if I can, and you hear this conversation and content come up a lot on social media, even like, I gave him good head and I gave him good box and he still ... which means that your ability to conceptualize being a good woman to a man is in your ability to satisfy him sexually. Well, since men are not really people, they're just walking phalluses, all they require or all they evaluate based on is your ability or lack of ability to satisfy them sexually. So then when you see this girl who leads with that, it's a consequence of all these things we've been talking about. You can't see yourself as a bad person, so you can really move however. You can't see men as people, so you can make up your version of who men are. And, however trivial that version is, you can just do that, right? It's same with men who only see women as gold diggers. So like your ability to please a woman is tantamount to your ability to pay for her, right? So we talk a lot about how women are objectified by men, right? Men see women as objects that can be purchased. Um, I don't know if women see men as objects, but they don't see men as humans. And part of that is because of everything we're talking about. And I think that situations like this happen as a consequence. And if we're unwilling to renegotiate how we as men show up for women, and showing up also means in our expectations of who they are, and also in our evaluation of our coaching and our capacity to bring out the best, as you put it, or coach the talent or evaluate the talent. If we're unwilling to do that because of a lot of the ego and a lot of the misogynistic, I think, assumptions that we have of women and our superiority across the board to women, I think these things continue to happen. I think these things are the backlash of those things that might have been done with good intentions or might have been put into place with good intentions, but I think are devolving in ways that we didn't really anticipate.
So what I brilliant and agree with the states statements made there. What does the appropriate response look like to a situation like that if we are to start to change the tides that has been missing from this scenario? Because all of the responses and reactions that I've seen to it have been that of disgust. When people talk about bring shame back, this, it's I haven't seen really anybody championing this. The one thing in that video that I found disheartening to a degree, and maybe part of it was in jest, but it still was said, was don't be surprised when we want that treatment. You see that, and this is part of evaluating talent that you're going to have around you. This is part of being victimized but not being a victim. You see that, and your response is, oh well, let me get mine, instead of being repelled by that. And there are some men that would maybe not even admit it in the comments under the viral reel, may not admit it, publicly, but if they had a chance to encounter, would well, hey, can I get that Duke Dennis treatment?
Let me see what you're talking about. Yeah, right. They would, yeah.
And so I have a challenge of seeing you as a victim. If that is your level of scouting, bro, you know how to read the scouting report on that. You can't read the scouting report on that. So and then because we can we can pretend as if it's not a abundance of men that she probably would have do right now. You know what I'm saying, displaying that Duke Dennis. She probably would have got it right now, and she could be with a different one tomorrow, if she desires to be. And so aside from what we're doing, in the macro, that's not most men, right? I don't believe. In the macro, and in response to this, like, what else would you prescribe would be an appropriate response to this?
And I want to say publicly that I commend Duke Dennis, because I saw the continuation of the video, and apparently he pulled her to the side and gave her a little heart to heart, right? Like, number one, her ability to like listen or lock in, like focus, was horrendous. So there might be some mental health situation going on there, ADHD, bipolarism perhaps, or just like decades of compounding trauma, right? Like if you've had a conversation with somebody who's severely traumatized, it's like they're not there low key. They're almost like input output. So I think that must be acknowledged, because there are a lot of people like her who we scapegoat as these examples of things gone wrong, but are really like shells, right? Because of some things that, but I would honestly, and to your point, I would honestly put this at the feet of men. Because like I mentioned, women are incapable of seeing men as people. And I don't know if I would say as a consequence or along with that, men do not see ourselves, we don't see ourselves as people. Like a lot of us, particularly in our community, see ourselves as walking phalluses. We are validated by our ability to accumulate, to bed, to brag about women. And I could go into the context of that when you live in a country that like completely disempowers you. You have to find power where you get it, and you got power sexually. So I'm gonna continue to tap on that button because that's the only time I feel dopamine. That's the only time I feel respected. That's the only time she doesn't have bass in her voice when she's talking to me, right? So there is that, but until we as men are able to draw really hard lines in the sand of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and what gets our attention and what doesn't get our attention, and what is good enough to entertain us and what is not, it won't change, right? Because I remember there was a clip of Just Pearl, and she talked about how part of the reason why it's impossible for a lot of the women we see, a lot of the women that came on Kevin Samuel's show as an example, to understand that they're average, is because they are in exceptional men's VIP sections. They are in exceptional men's bedrooms. So they equate that to having access to those men because they have access to them sexually, which is our fault. Right? Which is our fault. I mean, we even talk about what's going on in places like Colombia, where because of the massive influx of tricks, that the prices of everything have gone up. The price of a taxi, the price to get a damn taco has gone up because y'all done fucked up the market by inflating things past their actual value. And that is what we're doing, whether we're doing it knowingly or unknowingly. And it's a consequence of us defining ourselves as paychecks and walking phalluses. And we operate like that. And it reinforces women's idea that that's all we are. And it's just a vicious ass cycle. So I think in that regard, we have to really hold that L. I don't think that's just on women. I think we really have to hold that. We created, her father failed her. The men who made her believe that this is the best thing she can offer a man failed her. Her friends who championed her ability to get niggas because she gave the best head in the city failed her. And it's just a vicious, and she's going to potentially raise a son who's going to think, oh, it's all women are because it's all my mom was. And I saw all the men who were coming in and out of her bedroom getting head because that's all they wanted. Oh, men only want sexual gratification. Well, that's what I can aspire to, is just wanting sex, and it just reinforces itself.
And it's obviously a sad state of affairs to be at that level and at that point. And it can't be understated, what Duke Dennis, did in pulling her aside, for sure. But man, more sad than her behavior and all of the failures that have preceded in her life to that point are the future failures that are going to come. Exemplified by even his response. So don't be surprised when we want that. Like, fellas, in the chat, like, how are you not disgusted? But like, how is that not just repulsive to you? Mm-hmm. Right? This is something I like really would like somebody maybe to like illuminate and answer for me. Like how that's not completely to even want your phallus to enter into that place. where she conducts herself that way, right? And you could only be okay with that if you don't have a healthy view of yourself, right? And it's hard for me. I can conceptualize it intellectually, but it's hard for me to really grasp what it takes to be there, you know. Like help me with that. Like, are we that empty of vessels, really? And like that's hard for me because I believe in our brothers, and I can't, you know, it's hard for me to really grasp that you feel that empty as a vessel, that's even attracted to you. What am I missing?
Yeah, man. I mean, it goes back to kind of what I touched on. I think that I think whereas the feminine essence craves safety, I think the masculine essence craves power, right? And I think a lot of times we demonize that, but ultimately, in order to do any of the things we're tasked to do as men, as husbands, etc., we need power. And when that power is abused, it's, you know, tyranny. But when it's being shepherded properly, it's guidance, it's mentorship, it's influence, it's, you know, it's positive, right? And I think that when we consider, because a lot of time when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm talking about the Black community, like exclusively. When we consider the context of strategically being disempowered as men, strategically being barred from our ability to meet our divine mandates, right? If you look at it biblically, we couldn't tend to our garden, as it were, right? For 400 years, and even after that. I think that does something to your psyche, right? I saw this GIF. It was a GIF of a father leaving the home, and a thought bubble coming out of the daughter who was crying was, "I don't need a man." The thought bubble coming out of the son is, "I don't want to be a man," right? Based on the observation of seeing the father leave them high and dry. But a lot of that and a lot of the dysfunction now and a lot of the reason why I think men can only conceptualize ourselves by our ability to conquer women is because that is the only time where we get to feel powerful. That's the only time. I see a comment that says women don't listen to us. That's the only time they do. Right. So if this is an inherent need as a man, and this is the only time and context where I can feel some semblance of that need being met, it's very easy for somebody to overindulge in that. Right. I mean, we know it very clearly when we talk about drug addicts and alcoholics. Is less about the actual substance and more about the feeling associated with that substance. So when we then reverse engineer and realize, oh man, oh, it's power. It's power that men are craving. And because they're craving power, it leads them down a path of behaviors that objectify themselves, use themselves to objectify others, and it causes them to objectify men and a vicious cycle. I think that's where we are. So I don't know if it changes until we're willing to confront that and be like, oh, what I'm really seeking is power. What I'm really seeking is authority. What I'm really seeking is a sense of agency as a man in my fullness. Hear the consequences of that, but like the feeling that I get, the euphoria is worth that. So, you know, I'm gonna get head from old girl because she give good head, and I'm gonna feel good about myself because I feel powerful right now. I don't really care or concern myself with the fact that she's probably been through some shit, which is why she's giving out free head. She's probably dirty. she's whatever the case may be, and I think that's what we're gonna have to untangle. And I think that's the part of this that we're missing, that we keep skipping over when we have a lot of these conversations, either critiquing men or critiquing women.
That's good. In addition to, I believe us even reframing what power looks like,
Mm-hmm.
is very important, and understanding that there's often more power in restraint, and there's more power in what you're not doing versus what you are doing. There's a difference in power and in force, right?
Mm.
There's a power is strength under control. From a athletic performance standpoint, track and field, wrestling, really any sport, you need powerful athletes. That's different than having absolute strength. Bodybuilders, have absolute strength, but how can if Christian Coleman won world record 60-meter, time, the best starter in sprinting history, he is incredibly powerful. He's not as strong as some of the guys at your local gym. He's not as strong as them in terms of can he squat the same amount that they squat? Absolute strength, probably not. But in terms of power, that strength under control, that's different. So I think we reframe how we see us executing power and understanding that it's just as much about how you can control the exertion that you have, having the exertion ability and being able to control that. That is actually the definition of power. Will serve us well in how we move about.
100%. 100%. Let us get to the interracial double standard. Before I play this video, I'm gonna tell you how I found it. So I don't know if it was a month ago, a couple months ago, when Dante Kyle went viral. I actually reached out to the brother. I don't know if he saw my DM or he ignored it. I don't know, but I wanted to get him on the show. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I was kind of down a rabbit hole watching his content. I was trying to get a sense of what he was about, and I came across an interview, or I don't know if it was an interview or just a group conversation he was involved in. It was the girl who does the parking lot monologues. I can't remember her name. It was him, and then it was another lady who is the one who went viral for saying there's a weakness in him, right? So that's basically how I came across this initially, and I had when I saw it, I was laughing because number one, it's what she said wasn't uncommon amongst Black women to say. And it wasn't any less ridiculous hearing it from her. But I was disappointed by the fact he didn't really have anything to say in opposition or in illuminating that part of the dialogue. But I'm gonna play the clip, and then I got a few other clips around this same topic, and then I want to kind of dive in.
Street and I see a Black man with a white woman, there's a weakness in him. Something in him is weak. I think when I see a Black woman with a white man, I think, oh, she's tired. She must have got so fed up that she's getting to rest now.
I'll play it again.
If I'm walking down the street and I see a Black man with a white woman, there's a weakness in him. Something in him is weak. I think when I see a Black woman with a white man, I think, oh, she's tired. She must have got so fed up that she's getting to rest now.
What say you, brother?
Oh, okay. We're going straight into it. I didn't know if you was rolling your other clips that would relate.
No, we'll do a little talking, and then I'm gonna put in another clip, and then we'll go some more, and then I'll put in another one. The next one's worse. The next one's
worse.
Worse, in my opinion. You might disagree.
Okay. I'm gonna start with her believing that when she sees a black woman with a white man, that she must be tired. I actually agree that she's probably right. These
Okay.
black women are probably tired in only seeing and selecting a particular type of black man as if we come in a one size fits all. Because usually when they have been with black men of a particular caliber and they get tired and say, well, I'm going to try a white man. That white man looks nothing like the type of black men that they have always selected. Notwithstanding that, there are plenty of white men who have some of the same poor character traits of the type of black men that she had selected for. Irresponsible, hyper masculine theatrics, anything that comes with the idea of Pookie and Ray Ray. They're white men that exhibit those characteristics. She didn't choose that type of white man, and the type of white man that she does choose that doesn't have to live up to the same aesthetic standards, doesn't have to live up to the same sexual prowess standards, maybe the height standards and charisma standards. There are black men that fit that same mold as well. And so she is tired, but she just doesn't, she's misplaced and doesn't realize that, what she's tired of is her poor selection. And she can only see and view black men in a very, very narrow lens, as if we all come in one size. And obviously it's flawed. Obviously it's ridiculous. But what she's fatigued with is her own decision making, her own selection process, her own lack of vetting, her own lack of being able to see the diversity of black men. That's what she's tired of.
No, for sure. One of the things I've talked about is how, and you touched on this, like the standards for the standards that black men have to meet are higher than any other man on the planet. And it's paradoxical because like we get none of the privileges of the patriarchy. We get all the blame of the patriarchy, or most of the blame. At least, at the very least, we're the mascot of toxic masculinity.
Right.
All while having none of the benefits, and all while having to perform to a higher degree than everybody, right? Like on a superficial level, like white dudes don't have to have straight hairlines. White dudes don't have to have crispy hairlines. When they should recede, and it is what it is. They do a little comb over, it is what it is. They should be over here on the side, and then this. But us,
if you're yourself enough, you could be president.
Listen, right? And the level of cool that we have to be you have to walk this fine line to not be called lame, to not be called sassy, to not be viewed as less than a man, as a black. If you are a brother who's articulate, who is academically inclined, our community of women included will call you lame, will ostracize you as only interested in the activities of white people. In fact, their ability to conceptualize your intellect is relegated to thinking you're trying to be white. A brother who can speak well is trying to be white. No, he's articulate. Right? And we disregard the effects that has on who that man becomes later in life, who he gravitates to later in life. All the while, it's like we have to live up to a higher standard of this paradoxical pseudo-masculine Tupac idea. All the while, our women are celebrated for being the most misbehaved and uncompromising women to their men. And that's the part that is ridiculous. And then you see the consequence of it. Women later in life, just like the lady in the video said, "Oh, she tried. It's her time to rest. Rest from what? Rest from what?" And the part we skip over, is those women who eventually, quote unquote, rest, raise their sons to be like the men who they are complaining about initially. Or they raise their sons to be the antithesis of what will be attractive, what will be capable of navigating women their age. So it's this like an escape hatch that's unearned, inequitable, and illogical. And to your point, the things that Jerry has to be, if he was simply black, you would call him lame. And we talk a lot about how, black men will settle for a fat white girl, this, and that. But we don't talk about how our women will settle for a lame white dude. A white dude, literally, if you put the same characteristics in a black man, most black women would not like him. But we want to talk about self-hate. We want to talk about, oh, but your mama black, but your daddy black. We need to start telling people, but your daddy black. Like I don't know if you saw some of the data that came out on dating sites, and I actually saw a white dude do a YouTube video about this. According to data from dating sites, ethnically speaking, the women who are the most desired by every group of men is, I think, it's Asian or Hispanic women, right? And the group of men that are desired by every group of women is not black men, it's white men, right? So we want to talk about how growing up, the effect, for instance, that boys growing up seeing Kim Kardashian had on their standards or their mate preferences. We don't talk about women growing up seeing Prince Charming or Ken from Barbie or any other cartoon that you could think of that pedestalize a white male protagonist. The other day, I felt a certain type of way because my little girl was watching Paw Patrol, and the boy, I can't remember the name of the boy in the show. He's like the Red Ranger of the show, right. But she was like, he's so handsome. I was like, man, if you don't shut your little but we don't talk about the effect that has on black women who were once black girls, who also exist in a white supremacist context that pedestalizes white people, particularly white men. We don't have that conversation. And the most insidious part, and I'll land my plane, the most insidious part is, and it kind of goes into the next video, you're essentially looking for salvation in the arms of the same man who was the architect of your dysfunction and your people's subjugation for hundreds and hundreds of years. If that's not Stockholm Syndrome, I don't know what the hell is.
Look, we're gonna get to the next clip, but you can't just end right there without me pointing out. I'm very much a man of faith, and strive to live my life, according to some principles of faith. But when you talk about this subconscious conditioning of a white man being a savior, we can't go past that without recognizing the powerful, profound, the prolific power in the inculcation of believing that a white man was the actual literal savior.
Your Lord and personal savior, yes.
And that is something that I have been very intentional about combating in the minds of my children. And it's difficult when you're in a society because people will say, "Oh, well, it's up to you." These people outside of your home aren't role models. It's like it's all about you as the parent. Unless you Amish living off grid in the wilderness, you're gonna come in contact with. I remember my oldest daughter. She's 16 now. When she was maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, and she was starting to have like self-image issues. We've seen the examples of the doll test, right? And particularly when it came to her hair, and we were having to affirm this like over and over. And she's never known my wife to not have natural hair. She's never known my wife to not have natural hair. But what you can't combat is when you're at the store in the checkout line and she just looks over at magazines and sees a Beyonce, and wow, why does her hair look different? And even other women in our social circle, they come over and she's puzzled and like, why does Miss such and such's hair look like that? And so now having to reaffirm her, like, no, you're beautiful the way you are. And she's got, beautiful locks now. And, she's embraced the beauty of, the skin that she's in and all that kind of stuff. But this was something that we had to, for about a 6-month period, like really be intentional about, reaffirming because of these, whitewashed ideas that are ubiquitous in our society, on the TV, on the magazine screens. And it's it's improved now, but 10 years ago, right? 15 years ago, when she was a baby, she's 16, 15 years ago, when she was a baby, we had to actively search for baby dolls. Like there were stores, the major big box stores that we would go to and didn't have the selection of dolls that looked like her. We had to go online. 15 years ago, we're still talking about in the 21st century, right? 2010. This is crazy, So these ideals about white, superiority, it's an active campaign to like uncondition some of these things down to just our everyday experiences that our kids grew up with the toys and the things they play with watching Paw Patrol, to definitely our expressions of faith and what we are putting in with who's the actual image of salvation.
Right. Now, for sure. That segues perfectly into the next clip here.
I'm going to explain to you the pipeline of the pro-black girl with the white boyfriend. A lot of people seem to not understand this and how this could happen, but I'm going to explain it to you step by step. So basically, the pro-black girl has reached far lengths of being pro-black and woke, to the point that she cannot relate to other black people in her community. She became too woke for them. Like, for example, a lot of people were shocked by this because Nikki Giovanni is known for being super pro-black. What I think happened to her is that she became like far too well-read in these topics and far too knowledgeable, to the point where she literally cannot relate to it with other black people around her. Like, because the thing is, most black people are not really that woke. And if you start talking about like real woke topics, they'll low-key like make fun of you. There's a reason why this guy was like so lonely. He could not relate to anyone around him in his community. Everybody thought he was crazy or weird or strange. Nobody related to him because he was just too pro-black. He was too strict in their perspective. This low-key happened to me when I was 17 and I got super deep into pro-black topics, to the point where I literally couldn't relate to other black people anymore because I was simply too militant, you know what I'm saying? Like, being too militant can actually make you alone. So I'm going to explain to you the pipeline of the pro-black girl with the white boyfriend. A lot of people seem to not understand this and how this could happen.
Talk to me, brother.
All right. I hope at some point you have that one comment that was on it. I hope we go.
Man, I can't. I couldn't even read the whole thing, man. That is a paragraph. But I'll pull it up and share it.
Okay. You want to get that now, or you?
No. Go ahead. I'll do it while you're talking.
Okay, gotcha. So, we talk a lot about the need to gatekeep, and particularly with like some vernacular, pro-black. Like what does it mean, right? We got to like define terms and say what it means, because it really has become synonymous. Like there's multiple levels of pro-black. So we could be using the same vocabulary, but speaking a different language. A lot of times, particularly here when we're talking about the pro-black woman that ends up with a white man, they don't actually mean pro-black. The feminist agenda has infiltrated some pro-black circles, and what they mean is pro-black woman. That's what they mean, right? And we can see this through the one of the poster mainstream organizations of pro-blackness, Black Lives Matter. Is that pro-black? Or is that about pro-black everything but heterosexual men? Pro-black woman? Pro-black gay man? Pro-black trans, whatever you want to be? Pro-black anything? Pro-black feminist man? Heterosexual man that has feminist ideals? Pro-black anything but a masculine heterosexual man. And so I think a lot of these women were actually cosplaying as pro-black. They weren't really pro-black. They had on the uniform, but were really agents of pro-black feminist ideology. And when you're actually that version of pro-black, the calling card is a white husband. There ain't nothing more pro-black for that brand of pro-black than a black woman with a white husband.
So I got the comment pulled up on the screen. So I shared it on my story, and I don't know if you guys realize this, but when you share on your story, it kind of DMs the person who posted it simultaneously. And apparently he doesn't accept DMs, because if he did, I would have tried to get him on the show. But this brother went off. I'm gonna leave it on the screen. Feel free to pause it and read his analysis, his dissertation. Feel free to come back to it. But I can't say it any better than this brother did, so I won't even attempt to. Shout out to James for actually sending this to me. But basically what I'll say is this. I'm going to take it out of the realm of women for a second. I think, kind of like I talked about, a certain arrogance in masculinity and in the performance of masculinity as it relates to women, and also as it relates to other men. I think there's also an arrogance in pro-blackness. And I say this as somebody who I guess would identify as pro-black. I think the mistake we make is we trivialize things that are very, very complicated. And I'll give an example. And another mistake that we make is we overindulge in the pageantry of revolution. I think a lot of people who call themselves pro-black aren't actually pro-black. They're just excited to be part of something. Right. A lot of people, especially today, and I feel the same way about even the LGBTQ movement and the trans movement and all that. A lot of people have created an identity around their advocacy for something. And oftentimes that identity, same with religion, is where they find their community, is where they find their validation. It's where they are afforded the opportunity to move up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So you're nobody Monday through Friday, but then you go to the rally and you that dude or you that girl. right? So now, even if there are parts of it that I'm not super clear on, or there are parts of it that I don't fully support, I have to, because this is my team, right? This is the jersey that I'm wearing. We see it even play out in sports, right? I'm a Saints fan, and my boy is a New York Giants fan, and like we are the best of friends until Sunday, and then I can't stand that motherfucker because humans are tribal, right? So we look for tribes, and for a lot of people, especially in the last few years, that tribe has been pro-blackness, and I don't think they know enough about it. I don't think that they are as sophisticated in their analysis of what that means. Um, I can't remember who said this, and if I remember, I need to say the name. But if you hate white people, you're not pro-black, because pro-blackness is not about hating white people. It's about loving black people and imagining a world that isn't predicated on our exploitation, right? So when I hear this girl and other people, especially kids, because she said she was 17 at the time, who talk about being militant, I understand that they are overindulging in the pageantry of revolution, right? Because real revolution is not overt. And I think a big mistake that we make as black folks is that we are too overt all the time about everything. So it's so easy to infiltrate. J. Edgar Hoover broke up Marcus Garvey. Same J. Edgar Hoover broke up the Black Panther Party. We are too loud at times. So that aside, I think the reason that's important is because the revolutionary or pro-black black woman with white man or to white man pipeline is explained because a lot of the pro-blackness that they advocated for was superficial. Because if you believe that black people, a lot of pro-black people believe black people are superior, morally, intellectually, etc., and simultaneously believe that you can't relate to black people because you are so advanced, one of those two beliefs is fictitious. Because either you deep down believe that the only people that are your intellectual equal or able to go with you there is white people, which contradicts your pro-blackness, or you also harbor a belief that black people are inferior except for you, who is part of the talented 10th, who's part of the exception, who's one of the good ones. You are in fact acknowledging white supremacy.
Piss me off. You pissing me off.
Piss me off. I see the wheels turning, man. I'm gonna land it right there. What say you?
Oh, you pissing me off, man. And the thumbnail, the poster child of it, right? Candace Owens.
Candace.
As seemingly intelligent as she is, to sit up there with a Nick Fuentes, as a Nick Fuentes makes the most erroneous, idiotic assertions about the inherent and intrinsic superiority of the white race. Somebody is combative and unafraid of pushback, of intellectual sparring, as a Candace Owens sat there on her hands with nothing to say, is emblematic of, oh, I'm not really, pro-black as much as she compared. No, I actually want better for black people, and it's the culture. I'm against the culture, and I actually want better for black. No. She feels that she's an exception, which actually makes me amend my initial assertion on this topic of they're not pro-black, they're pro-black woman. They're pro-black self, just them individually. I don't even think that they're pro-black woman. They're pro-self. And they happen to be a black woman, but they see themselves as that exception. And it's only about what's best for them. Because if it really was even just about pro-Black women, they would be championing and still be advocates for Black family, even if that wasn't just their personal choice and that just didn't happen. They happened to fall in love with somebody else. They still would be advocates for other Black women to go get, with Black men and start Black families. But they're not. They're not really champions of that and advocates of that. Oftentimes, they, even under the guise of being pro-Black, encourage the swirling. Like they overlap with some of the swirling, and will sometimes feign behind, I want a Black man to do better, but in the meantime, our sisters they gotta have this. And no. It's about self. You see yourself as an exception. It's about self. You see yourself in this exception, and for the other few Black women that share your tribe, that you feel like may be exceptions themselves, and only those Black women, you would like for them to see success as you see it with a white man as well. But any other Black woman, and certainly any Black man, you really have no care of the outcomes that they get and their well-being.
I think, and I'm glad you brought up feminism, because I think that's a big part of this, because first wave feminism sought to say women deserve the rights that men have, right? Women should be able to vote, women should be able to work, have a bank account, all that good stuff. But I think it's morphed into women and men are the same, women and men are equal. And I think then you compile on top of that the sexual revolution that muddied the waters of what sex is, as a representation of the way that we negotiate with others and the way we negotiate with the world. So what I mean by that is the logistics of sex for a man and a woman are inherently different, and I don't think it's acknowledged enough. One party is entering, one party is being entered. One party is the flag, one party is the earth. And when you study history, part of seizing a territory during an invasion was to conquer the land and also conquer the people. And part of conquering the people is conquering the women, indoctrinating them into your way of thinking, so much so that they produce heirs for you. So now the offspring doesn't identify with their motherland, they identify with their fatherland. So with those logistics in mind, with those that historical context in mind, it's very different for a Black man potentially seeking to subconsciously even get something that he was denied, a piece of power that he was denied in the form of a white woman. Because part of conquering an area is conquering its women, not its men, but its women. It's another thing entirely to be enthusiastic about being conquered. And I think feminism and the sexual revolution has perverted it and bastardized it so much that the process of being conquered is empowering in a way. So for me, whenever I hear things like this, I'm like, as a Black woman, how do you reconcile a history of you being taken by force to now idealizing the people, the man who was doing the taking, and the consequences that it had for you and the consequences that it had for your sons, brothers, and fathers? How do you reconcile that? That's the point, especially if you consider yourself pro-Black, especially if you consider yourself militant. I don't understand how the juices even flow for a Caucasian man in that context. What am I missing?
It's this distorted actual view of self. This is what it comes down to. There was a documentary, Adopted, and it highlighted, people being adopted, and particularly people adopted by Caucasian families, and they were of different ethnicities. And I don't remember a whole lot about the documentary, but one thing that stuck out to me was it was an Asian girl that was adopted by white parents when she was very, very young and raised in, white suburbia, all the things you would think, predominantly white school and all that kind of things. And when she got to a certain age where children start teasing and doing things of that nature, and they start doing the slanted eyes, tease, her as being Asian, she literally had a disconnect and like, what are they talking about? She didn't recognize even her own phenotype. She thought her eyes looked like everybody else.
Yeah.
She literally didn't see herself as Asian.
Yeah.
She didn't see herself as Asian. And so, a lot of these women have so othered themselves, think so much that they are the exception. They actually think, no, but I actually am a swan. I actually am different. Like to the core of them. And I hope they have the organ donor on their ID so we can examine their brains when they're like there's something mentally like really to be examined when you like. That's so interesting with Candace, who's such a advocate for being in opposition to trans identity, which hey, ally in that arena. I appreciate what you're doing, but this idea of like literally taking on an identity that is in contrary to reality, right? They're trans white.
That's real. That's what they used to call them, Oreos, black on the outside, white on the inside.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny. I was actually having a conversation about Beyonce. I think I sent you, or I posted it on my story. I think you responded to the post. But I think she's an example of pro-black superficiality, right? Like you talk all the black shit in your music, your presentation is not black, right? And I think for me, I think that's the danger of. I think that's the danger of how we've historically approached pro-blackness, because I think when whiteness was created, right? According to like Tim Wise's way of categorizing it, it was strategic in the same way the Berlin Conference was. It was white slave owners who were the minority were afraid that the indentured poor white and slave black majority would coalesce and would create opposition to their tyranny. So we have to divide and conquer. And how we divide is we create the concept of whiteness, which muddies the water between Scottish and Irish, muddies the water between English and Czechoslovakian or whatever the case may be. Let's unite under this banner of whiteness so we can alienate you from your black brothers and sisters, because at least you look like the ruling class, which I think we could also make the argument about how the middle class has been weaponized against the poor by the upper class, because you're in that middle ground of like you're almost rich, you're aspiring to be rich, so you don't want the house of cards to fall yet because you have a chance. Similarly, you look like the rich folks back then, you look like the owners, so I want to maintain this order so maybe one day I can be that. And then blackness, unfortunately, was created as a response to that. And because it wasn't a strategic creation, it was simply a response. I think that's why it's been so hard to coordinate. And I say all that to say when we look at people like Candace Owens, when we look at even pro-black leaders of the past and Beyonce, what blackness means, what pro-blackness means is advocacy. It's empowerment. It's in marching. It's in speaking truth to power. It's in what I would categorize as superficial progress. It's in the appearance of being powerful. It's in the appearance of doing something. It's in the appearance of fighting the power. But the realities of doing these things are covert. The realities happen behind the scenes. The realities are strategic negotiations, strategic moves being made. And I think, unfortunately, black folks, and I think this about black folks across the globe, even my people as Nigerians, we've lost the plot and we overindulge in superficiality. One of the things I plan on doing a stream about was Ibrahim Traore. He's the current president of Burkina Faso. And Burna Boy, which a lot of people might know him, he's a Nigerian artist. He offered Ibrahim Traore a free concert. He wanted to throw a free concert in Burkina Faso in support of all the good work that he's doing. Ibrahim said, hell no, nigga. He said, this is not the time. And the reason I respected that so much is because, to my point, and to Burna Boy's actions, and to the people who were applauding Burna Boy for his actions, advocacy, progress, superficiality looks like pageantry, and that's it. And they don't consider how pageantry actually takes away from real progress. They don't consider how pageantry actually dilutes real actual progress, because we're so enamored with the music of revolution. We're so enamored with the aesthetic of revolution. Even artists, that's their inspiration, is the people on the street with their fist up. And it's like, that's not where real change happens. But again, to my point about Beyonce, to my point about black women who choose white mates, even though they consider themselves pro-black, a lot of what we see as blackness, a lot of what we see as progress, a lot of what we see as advocacy, empowerment, all that flowery stuff is really just superficial if we really were to tell the truth.
I will say I respect that move on Tarae's part, and simultaneously I don't fault a Burna Boy for that. I think we do also need to make space for the fact that people's gifts and their abilities to contribute is what they have. I mean, he is a musical artist. What else is he supposed to do? So to make that offer and gesture, I think is righteous and appreciated, and it's simultaneously equally, if not more, I'm going to say more righteous was the decline. Right, two of those things can be valid at the same time. But no, man, I absolutely agree overall with the pageantry, man. How many boycotts, right, have been called upon in the last? Like, are we can we shop at H&M again yet? Are we back? Are we still Target, the Starbucks? Am I even supposed to be watching NFL? I know it's preseason. Marching, protesting, boycotting, these are all valuable tools when used at the right time, right? A benefit concert, pageantry is a tool to not be excluded, but at the right time and the right execution of it. And so with all of these different boycotts, NFL, Starbucks, Target, H&M, this one, that one, I ain't never signed up for none of them. And I was pro-black.
I signed up for nothing.
I ain't even signed up for none of them. I wasn't even gonna delude or pretend that I was. Why? Because I'm not down for the call, because I'm not willing to make a sacrifice? No. Because to your point about being strategic, when you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, right, and how long it lasted, and how there was an actual list of demands. Now I will parse and get into how, I won't rather parse and get into how, we may have been better off not trying to boycott anyway, because we had our own bus companies. All right. Even with my hometown where I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, had black bus companies. So, of course, Martin Luther King said, at the end, I fear I've integrated us into a burning house. Like, I don't know that we needed to be trying to get on their buses anyway, and go in their restaurants anyway, right? Again, where I'm from, right next to Winston-Salem, North Carolina is Greensboro, North Carolina, where the Greensboro Ford, the A&T Ford, went and sat at the diner, and endured what they endured to be able to at the Woolworth counter, to go through, just to realize, like, man, we did this for this bland, unseasoned food, right? And chicken, like, this what we was fighting for this whole time anyway,
Right. Yeah.
That part aside of the wisdom on wanting to, integrate into their bus system, the execution of having an actual clear objective, a clear set of demands of what you wanted, people being unified, people coming together to assist in, okay, we're not riding a bus, so I'm gonna pick you up, or we're gonna make sure that you can still get around. Right, that part of it. If we had a clear set of we were supposed to boycott the NFL for one man to get his job back. Even if I am on board with the cause of Colin Kaepernick kneeled because he was, doing it as a sign for, against police, brutalization and injustice. Okay, I can get behind that. So our demand is give him his job back. Our demand is not related to even the cause that he said he was kneeling for. We weren't saying, hey, so thus we want him to, and if we want to get his job back as an amendment, you know how you throw like amendments onto bills, right? Like, I know this bill is about to pass, so let me slide something into the bill that I want, underneath. So it wasn't, hey, we want the NFL to take a clear stance on this and put some money toward these things, and we'll slide in here, hey, and give my man his job back too. Our whole boycott was like, he can't get a job. He's being blackballed. That's boycott. At the same time that white people were boycotting because they were allowing kneeling. And so, contrary to the bubble that a lot of black people were in, the boycott that was actually more on the radar and more concerning to the NFL was, we got a whole bunch of older white men that are mad. We got to get this kneeling thing nipped in the butt. And they were boycotting. So that's what was on there. They weren't even thinking about you boycotting. So by you not viewing or going or whatever you were doing, you were actually contributing and making their boycott look stronger. So where was the strategy? Where was the intellectual backing into, okay, what are our list of demands? Is this sensible to what we're actually upset about? No, we wanted one dude to get the job back. So yeah, I kept watching my football.
I just came to a realization that just hit me with a wave of depression. I think that, and I probably got to sit with this. I think that the reason pro-blackness or blackness hasn't been successful at scale is because it's always just been a reaction to pan-whiteness. Blackness was created because whiteness was created. Pan-Africanism was created because of white supremacy. We've always been a step behind. We've always been, reacting to. And what do we talk about the difference between men and boys? Men respond, boys react. Men anticipate. Men, brother in the comments talked about how the Black Panther Party was more concerned about in-house than out of house, and that's partly why COINTELPRO was so successful. And I think that's something we're gonna have to sit with as Black folks. At what point are we going to submit ourselves to a version of Blackness that is anticipatory, a version of Blackness that is proactive instead of reactive, right? When we think of, to your point about protests, or it's some dude died protest, it's some dude lost his job protest, it's superficiality, right? We're talking about it, how it shows up in relationships, but the unfortunate reality we're going to have to come to terms with is a lot of what we have been socialized to view as Blackness and pro-Blackness is simply just performance. And that kind of segues. I'll be trying to set these up strategically. You know what I'm saying?
Come on.
That segues into this right here.
Everyone should experience a family reunion in the Mississippi Delta at least once. So, I'm taking you to mine. Welcome to the Meeks Family Reunion. Every 2 years, over 500 of us gather to celebrate our legacy, heritage, and ancestors. Friday night is our banquet, Saturday is the picnic, and Sunday is our business meeting and breakfast. This year, we're back where it all began, on 48 acres that's been in my family for over 5 generations. This house belonged to my great-grandfather, Abner Meeks, who lived to be 107, and his wife, Medora, and together they had 14 children. And if you look at our family tree, there are 1,828 descendants from those 14 children. Family celebrations have been held on this land for almost 100 years, but the first organized Meeks family reunion happened in 1983. Generations of Black Americana live in these moments, where a great-grandma's cornbread recipe can meet the hands of some of the youngest members of our family for the first time, and the past and future hold hands beneath the Delta sun. It is because of this land that I gravitate towards certain foods, hosting styles, and ultimately the content that I share with you all. Because in every line dance, every pair of cowgirl boots, every big pickup truck, fish fry, and slice of caramel cake, and every gallop of Cousin Nick's horse Stack, yes, his name is actually Stack, there's a deeper understanding of my identity and proof that love can be passed down from one generation to the next. I feel so proud to know that my daughter is a new little leaf on a family tree that doesn't just remember our lineage, but protects it, preserves it. Everyone should experience and ultimately the content that I share with you all. Because in every line dance, every pair of cowgirl boots, every big pickup truck, fish fry, and slice of caramel cake, and every gallop of Cousin Nick's horse Stack, yes, his name is actually Stack, there's a deeper understanding of my identity and proof that love can be passed down from one generation to the next. I feel so proud to know that my daughter is a new little leaf on a family tree that doesn't just remember our lineage, but protects it, preserves it, and ultimately the content.
So the last point was, doesn't just know our lineage, but protects it and preserves it. This doesn't just know our lineage, but protects it and preserves it for the white man.
Brother, you won't lie when you said worse.
Yeah.
I didn't know what, I hadn't seen this one. Didn't know this was coming. Oh man. This coming to the like relationship, side of things, right? Because obviously we, on that last year we kind of got broader to just, Black social interests on a macro. And this, brings it back to, the relationship dynamic. I'm here. We have to have a real understanding of not just the technology of marriage, but the technology of love, right? Like, what is love, right? Envy was even talking about this on the Breakfast Club with Dr. Umar when they had the viral clip and Dr. Umar was talking about uh, interracial dating and marriage and envy. Not for nothing. We live in the burbs. My son, he's around white kids and hey, if he happens to, that's who he loves. This idea of the heart wants what the heart wants. You can't help who you love. This is the idea that most people have on love because they don't really understand what love is. They have this romantic idea what love is that is literally rooted in Greek mythology, Greek and Roman mythology. The heart wants what the heart wants. Oh, I don't know. Almost sounds like a mythical character that flies around in a diaper with some wings and shoots arrows at people. And once you get hit with the arrow, whatever you see next, you're in love, Cupid, right? The heart wants what the heart. I have no control over who I love. These are Roman antics ideas, and it sounds silly when I say it that way. But when you look at how people actually walk out their mate selection journey, it is completely driven by the chemicals, the chemical reactions of the dopamine and how they feel the butterflies, right? I've had so many questions and conversations from people about mate selection about how important is vibes. Vibes. You mean the dopamine that's going off when you're having an interaction with someone? Like that's how we're mate selecting, or understanding love through this idea of a soulmate, which again dates back to mythology, where they used to think that people have 4 arms, 4 legs, and there's some debate on whether it was 2 heads or 1 head with 2 faces. But these people were causing problem for the gods. So Zeus took one of his lightning bolts and split the people in half. And that's why we now have 2 arms and 2 legs and 1 head. And you're walking around aimlessly until you find your soulmate. So this idea that there's one other person out there for you, right? That completes you. What was the line? What was the movie? You complete me, right? Like you're searching around, walking around looking for amongst the 8 billion other people on the planet, the one person who completes you. These are ideas of love that we have. Sounds silly when I actually introduce the background of Zeus. I don't believe in Zeus with the lightning bolt. I don't believe in Cupid and shooting you. I don't believe in that. But you actually believe in soulmates. You use the vernacular and talk about the idea and concept of soulmates. You actually believe the heart wants what the heart. Well, you can't help who you fall in love with. But when we really understand love to be an act of the will, coupled with emotion that leads to action on behalf of the object, then I can decide who I love. It's not void of emotion, but it's not driven by emotion. Love is not void of emotion, but it's not driven by emotion. So when you're just driven by your emotions, bro, that's just chemicals. So yes, I absolutely can. If I love my people, I have an act of the will that's coupled with emotion that leads to action on behalf of the object. And I see the plight of my people. And I know the number one tool for our people to come out of the plight of the situation that we're in is family. That's the number one tool that we have to combat this, is to build stronger communities. And to build stronger communities, we need stronger families. And to have stronger families, I need to make, with someone from said community, that I absolutely can make an active decision to put myself in position to build a family with someone from that community. And so it gets back to the root of this throwed idea of our concept of love being so twisted and distorted, borrowed from the Greeks and Romans with their antics.
Yeah. I wanna pull that picture back up on the screen.
Wow.
Because I was looking at it while you were talking, and I realized that I'm actually less bothered by the fact that she's black and he's white. And I'm more bothered by the fact that although all her bridesmaids are black, all his groomsmen are white. Which leads me to believe outside of his black woman, he isn't even networked closely with black men. or even because sometimes when you have a wedding, the groom's the wife's husband, you and him are cool as hell, he becomes one of the groomsmen, and it brings up the point that you made about pro-blackness really being pro-black woman as opposed to real pro-blackness and real actual sustainable power, which is contingent upon the position and the authority afforded to black men. And I me as for one, I don't think you can be really truly pro-black if you're in an interracial relationship. That's me. And some people disagree with that level of, I guess, extreme, but I think particularly if the person you're in an interracial relationship with isn't even networked with people of your race, you're their only tether into, pun intended, into the black experience. And then you might secretly harbor the idea that they're the only ones able to intellectually relate with you because you've reached a level of pro-blackness that most black people can't even associate with you on. So you're harboring white supremacy while being claiming to be pro-black. It's
Yo, that's a point, bro, because I'll be transparent here. Like, we all have contradictions, right? We all have contradictions, and I'm okay with that. That's part of the human condition. I seek to reduce my contradictions and own them and embrace them when they're there. And I do have a contradiction in, I got a friend of mine, white guy, and he's got a black wife, and he's only really been around, black women that he's been romantically involved with that I know of. But all his boys is black. like the only white people I have ever seen him around are people who he's biologically
related to.
Everybody else that he's around is black. So that's a very, very powerful point. And a lot of the women that we're talking about, in this regard, they're not with white men like that.
That the heart wants what it wants thing. I can get jiggy with it if it's a situation like that. If it's a Rachel Dolezal where she was transracial, even I can get jiggy. But when it's an Aryan, like then I don't believe you, lady. When it's I don't believe. Candace Owens is a perfect example. I don't believe you, lady. You were, and this is what we're gonna have to start telling people. You were jealous that you never had the opportunity to be a white woman, and being with a white man is the first time in life where you have the opportunity to be human instead of a black human, because black is an asterisk, right? So when you're with somebody of the dominant race, part of the comfort there is in your ability or your allowance, theoretically, to finally just be a person.
You mean let your hair down?
When it wants to go up. That day. Listen, man. I'm not gonna go too hard on him. But yeah, man, I think we can go ahead and like start wrapping up. We've been on this for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I don't want to get added to no lists. Do you
I think we on them.
Man, maybe just give me a warning list. I don't want to be on the Southern Law Poverty Center. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to be a black identity extremist. I love white people. Final thoughts, brother.
I love white people, man. Great conversation, man. Shouts out to the chat. I love the engagement, that we have in the chat, and I can't echo it enough. I'm gonna do it every single time, man. Shouts out to you. Another helpful conversation. There's a lot, to unpack that we unpack. There's a lot of takeaways for people, as they're watching, replays. And hey, I'm gonna call upon the chat. You see what what Obi's putting together here, week after week, man. Share it out, spread the word. Let's continue to have the conversation get more and more robust in the comment section. Man, Alan, keep doing the thing with bringing these powerful topics and these powerful insights, man. So salute,
brother. I appreciate you, man. As always, thank you for joining. Thank you for lending your wisdom. Thank you for being a phenomenal sparring partner. We got to keep this thing going, man. Yeah, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you.
No doubt, man. I look forward to the next one. And hey, we look forward to these views. Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and do the whole YouTube thing, like
share, subscribe.
Right? Hey, and you know what? Those who are been active in the live chat, man, once this is over, just go drop a comment on the replay. Obviously those comments, that's been going on here live, don't transfer over. So do that for the algorithm, man. Just a little housekeeping. You know what I'm saying? Shouts out to you once again, Obi.
For sure. Salute, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. Peace.
All right, y'all. We have reached the end of another fantastic, sensational stream. Appreciate y'all tuning in. For those of you watching on YouTube, those of you watching on Instagram, thank you for joining. Hopefully, you gained something from our conversation. I sure as hell did. I got some things I need to think about, sit with. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting. Feel free to hit the Cash App. Matter of fact, I got a shout out. Let me shout out some of the people who supported financially. Shout out to the resident airsofter with the $50 super chat. Thank you so much, brother. Shout out to Dub Will with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Again, all you guys' support really helps what we're doing. It helps my comeback, because I've been out the way for a little bit. So thank you guys for supporting. Consider hitting the Cash App is at WNT Talk if you want to support. Matter of fact, I got some Cash Apps the other day. Let me shout them out. I said I was going to do that. I know the first one was the brother S.Web. Shout out to S.Web. He commented. He said he lives. Like I said, I've been out the way. So shout out to S.Web. Shout out to Edward Young Muhammad. Appreciate you, brother. For supporting. Again, if you want to support, hit the Cash App. Consider joining our Patreon. The Patreon's been kind of slow, but we're going to ramp up here soon. Yeah, watch this back. Watch last week's stream, the stream before that. Check out some of the content on the channel. We have a lot of content. Appreciate y'all supporting. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And I will see you guys.